Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. I'm going to be bringing another show today. I wanted to dig into a couple things. Ryan Day and Jim Knowles met with the media, so you know they had some cool things to say. I wanted to go over that with you guys. Of course, going to get into my daily stat dive that I like to go into, and then I have a few things about kind of what we should expect to see from Ohio State going forward. So let's go ahead and get into that. The first thing I wanted to talk about, like I said, Jim Knowles and Ryan Day met with the media. Ryan Day had some interesting things to say, and so did Jim Knowles. A couple of the things that I picked up on that I thought were interesting. Ryan Day was talking. He was asked multiple times throughout the whole press conference about Kyle McCord, and some of the interesting things that he said was he was asked about Kyle's performance against Notre Dame, and he completely kind of brushed it off and didn't want to talk about it. Now, I'm not going to look too far into that, but that is what happened. He said, "Look, we're moving forward," and he said, "We've gotten better," and or he said, "We've gotten better at some things, and there's some things that we need to continue getting better at." So I don't know. He didn't really want to talk about it, but he did at least give that little nugget. And he did say somebody asked him about like if they can remove the expectations from Kyle, or like if he's going to start expecting more from Kyle. And he said his expectations are growing for him, so that's always good. Hopefully, we'll get to see Ryan Day kind of open things up a little bit more. Um, I've kind of been under the belief that he has opened it up, but we'll see. Obviously, there's some different things they can do. And then the last thing that he had to say about Kyle, there was Spencer Holbrook is the dude's name that asked the question, and he said, "Are you past the point of like we can't put too much on Kyle?" And Ryan Day said, "We took a step in the right direction, but we're going to keep building and growing." And I mean, again, I don't really think there was much else he could have said in that situation. The thing with Ryan Day is he kind of reverted back to his normal self. We kind of thought maybe he would be more open in the press conferences and stuff after him, what he did after the Notre Dame game, but it seems like that was all just emotion. And he's right back to his kind of buttoned up coach talk self. And I mean, whatever, it is what it is. That's who he is. That's how he likes to do it when he's in the media. So whatever. Who am I to judge? Yo, what up, Mark? Keep typing in the chat if you can, brother. Let me know if you got any questions. I'm just talking about what Ryan Day and Jim Knowles had to say at their press conference. Let me see here. He was asked about Marv. He said that Marv should be full go this weekend. Obviously, he had the scary injury against Notre Dame, got his ankle rolled up, but Marv came back and played in that game. He actually didn't even miss a play on offense, so I think Marv will be fine. And he seems like he's been practicing and stuff, so there should be no issues there. Hopefully, that ankle is like 100% and not just something that's like uh, kind of touch and go, because not having Marv at full strength would really impact this team a lot in terms of what they can do offensively. And then Ryan Day, he was asked about like if he's challenging his players. Basically, he said, "Look, we're gonna challenge every single player and every single coach on this coaching staff, and we need to get better every single week." He said, "Basically, what you should be seeing this week is Ohio State 5.0, and then every single week as the week goes on, they should evolve and continue getting better." Now, all coaches say that, but I do believe that with this team that they can continue getting better as the year goes on. Obviously, the scores are not going to continue getting better simply just because they're going to be playing better competition. But I do believe that at certain positions, especially like quarterback and some spots on the defense and especially the offensive line, they could really get better as the year goes on. And by the end of the year, I mean, this team will be a problem if the offense continues to get better. This team is going to be a problem. And that was kind of it for Ryan Day. Like I said, he had a lot of coach talk stuff about like specific players, but nothing crazy. And then Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles likes to get into the weeds a little bit more than Ryan Day does. So he did have some interesting things to say. I'm going to get into those too. Um, Mark, I think we give up our first big TD this week, but I think we win 38-10. You mean like our first? Because as of right now, this is a stat I actually was talking to Mark about this morning. Um, as of right now, Ohio State's only given up a touchdown of the longest touchdown they've given up was 2 yards. Obviously, at some point in the year, that's going to change. Somebody's going to score from 10 yards, 20 yards, or a busted coverage, something. They're going to give up points from more than 2 yards out. But if the goal this year was to not give up big plays, that stat right there kind of says it all, that they're achieving that goal, and they just need to continue achieving that goal. But yeah, I think you're right, Mark. They probably give up a touchdown this weekend, um, longer than 2 yards. I mean, maybe even like longer than 20 yards. Maryland's a very explosive team, and they have a lot of speed, and they do try to get their guys into space. So I mean, it could easily happen this week. As long as they don't happen multiple times, then I would still feel confident about this defense. I just don't see any team really getting off on this secondary unless like if our defensive line can't generate any pressure at all, then I can see that happening. But as of right now, the way that they're playing, I think that the defensive line is at least generating pressure and making it where guys can't run, um, like double move routes and shit like that, because those things take time to develop. That's kind of where Michigan beat us last year, but at the same time, we were just they didn't have to do anything crazy or any long developing routes simply just because we were blitzing everybody. I don't know what that was all about, but yeah, we were blitzing the house and they took advantage of it. But this year we're not doing that, and I think the teams are going to struggle with that. And then especially with our defensive line is actually getting pressure. I know everyone's mad and everyone is judging the defensive ends because of no sacks, but them guys are getting pressure. If you go back and watch the Notre Dame game and just watch the defensive line, you'll see that whenever Sam Hartman dropped back, if he didn't get rid of it quickly, he had to get off his spot and move and try to make a play. And I mean, again, you want them to get sacks because those are like game changing plays. But I think that those will come when they start playing against quarterbacks who are trying to create more. Like this weekend, I could easily see our defensive ends getting a few sacks this weekend, just because Tualia Tagovailoa is a quarterback that's going to try to create. He's going to try to make a guy miss and get out of the backfield instead of just getting the ball away as soon as he sees his lineman's going to lose the battle. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. Jim, circling back to Jim Knowles, he was asked about that specifically, about sacks, and he pretty much said like I don't really care about sacks as long as our defense is not giving up a ton of points. And on that same boat. I mean, obviously in some of the big games, you're going to want to see those big plays to help change the momentum of the game, but at the same time, if you're playing against a team, any team that really Ohio State can play against this year, like look at the offenses around the whole country. If you're going to ask a team to nickel and dime their way down the field, eventually they're going to make mistakes. That's when you capitalize on those mistakes and maybe get a turnover, maybe get a big stop, a sack, something like that. But we just can't revert back to what happened last year where teams could play a sloppy football game, but they executed 7 plays properly, and all 7 of those plays were touchdowns. So now, your team automatically has to score 45 points or you lose. And that's what happened in the Michigan game. That's what happened in the Notre Dame game and in the Maryland game last year. Luckily, Ohio State was able to score at ease on Maryland. Also was able to score at ease against Georgia until the end of the game when Marvin Harrison Jr. went out. Then they couldn't score so easily. The defense was still, like I said, they were making plays, but at the same time, Georgia only has to execute 7 or 8 plays, and all of a sudden now they're winning. I don't know. I think the defense is just going to be suffocating this year, and they're going to be taking advantage of the mistakes that teams make, which I think you can't ask for more than that. Let me see here. He was also asked. They didn't talk too much about the Notre Dame game, but Jim Knowles was asked about that, and he said basically he was talking about late in the game when Notre Dame got their couple drives off, how they were able to run the ball pretty much with ease, and he said he really needed to adjust to that, and he didn't. He kind of took the blame for it, which I don't know. Coaches are going to do that anyway, but this is something that I kind of picked up on while watching the game. Was that Ohio State needed to adjust. It wasn't just that guys were getting bullied. It was that Notre Dame was doing some really cool things with their run game, and creating extra gaps, and their players were hitting those gaps. And then it was up to, the linebackers and the defensive line to try to tackle those guys pretty much from the side or from behind, and they were getting drug a little bit. But I mean, I think that sticking to the game plan, they were able to score 14 points, and then after that, the next drive they got, we got the ball back. So I mean, obviously he made the adjustments, but in a close game like that, I think you want to see him make those adjustments after the first drive. However, I mean, the second drive against Notre Dame, this is where a lot of people lose me because people say like, oh, they ran the ball down the field. In the second drive where Notre Dame scored their touchdown to put them up finally 14-10, Ohio State had them held to like I think a 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, and then they attacked the linebackers in coverage and went over the top on Cody Simon, who was in the game, and got the first down. So I mean, it wasn't just, and that was like a 20-something yard pass. So it's not like they drove the whole field just running the ball in Ohio State. The running game was working, but I think they were also getting their pass game going, which is probably what froze Jim Knowles from adjusting to what they were doing in the run game. All right, so moving on from that, the last thing I wanted to say about what Jim Knowles had to say, he talked about Denzel Burke, and the way he talked about Denzel Burke is the way that we've been talking about Denzel Burke, and I love that. He came out and he said something along the lines of like, it's really nice having Denzel out there because you can just put him in coverage on his side of the field, and then you don't have to worry about that at all. Like pretty much, he's saying once you tell Denzel what to do on his side of the field, that whole side of the field is on lockdown. And I love that from him. Obviously, it's if you're a man, you're not locking down the whole side of the field, just that receiver. But there was multiple plays watching like the All 22 film where Denzel Burke was kind of playing a split. I don't know what it's called. I'm not gonna lie, like I'm into the X's and O's that much, but basically kind of a split where two guys were running down the field, and he's running in between those two guys, and he has time where he can break on either throw if the quarterback were to throw it, and his eyes are on the quarterback. So I don't know. Denzel Burke's been dominant, and I mean the fact that Jim Knowles is talking about him the way that we are, the fans are, is awesome to me, and I hope that he just continues to show that dominance all year because that's championship defense that he's playing right now. All right, so the next thing I wanted to get into here is my daily stat dive. Like I said before, I'm a big stat guy. I like to get into them, and there's so many that's what makes it fun to me. You can kind of find whatever you want to spin your own narrative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the narrative that this is the best Ohio State team since 2019, and I'm going to tell you why. All right, so looking into points per game offensively and defensively. Ohio State this year is averaging 34 points on offense, only giving up 8 points on defense. That's a 26-point differential. So right now they're 26 points better than the opponents that they played. Let me see. Mark says, I think we'll see the best of McCord this weekend. Notre Dame game was huge for his confidence. Listen, I agree with you, Mark. And that's actually, I have that to talk about a little bit later here. Is one of the segments we're going to get into is how much better can Kyle McCord get as the season goes on. So I'll get into that here in a little bit. So back to the stats. Again, 2023 Ohio State's point differential so far. Now, I know they've only played their first 4 opponents. However, I think that the first 4 opponents kind of is excuse me. I think the first 4 opponents is kind of a good indication of what the season is. You have 2 easy games that you should win easily. You have 1 Big Ten opponent that could give you a game, but you still should win. And then you have a top 10 matchup versus a team that I think is just as good as Penn State and Michigan this year in Notre Dame. So I think that's a good balance of games where you can kind of project that out to a season. So again, back into the stats, 34 points scored, 8 points allowed, 26-point differential. Now let's go to 2022, so last year. The offense obviously was better. They averaged 44 points. The defense allowed 21 points per game, so that's 23-point differential. So far this year, we're 3 points higher in differential than last year. Then you get into 2021. The offense was obviously still better, averaged 46 points a game. The defense allowed 23. So again, that differential on that is 23 points. So we're still 3 points higher this year than we were in 2021 as far as the point differential. Then I look back at 2020, 41 points scored. So still better, but not as good as 21 or 22. But the defense averaged giving up 26 points. So that was only a 15-point differential. And that was a team that went to the national championship. Obviously that was the COVID year, and all of the games on there were just Big Ten games that they played. So that makes sense why the differential would be a little bit different because you're just playing better teams. And then and some of the teams that they would have blown out that year didn't play. Like I think they didn't play Maryland and then Michigan. They would have blown them out too. But whatever, we won't talk about that. All right, and then back to 2019. This one actually surprised me. So in 2019, Ohio State averaged 47 points. That's the most out of the Ryan Day tenure. 47 points a game. Only allowed 13 points a game. That's a 34-point differential. So obviously the 2019 team is one of the ones that most Ohio State fans would consider one of the best Ohio State teams ever. 34-point differential is crazy. Right now they're at 26 this year. So my argument, I think, can stand or be made with these stats that in 2023, this is Ohio State's best football team since 2019. And that 2019 did not win the national championship, but I think that this team could. They just have to continue getting better, especially if they continue getting better offensively. They're going to create a lot of problems for teams. All right, so that was my daily stat dive. I just wanted to go into that and kind of make my point with stats that this is the best team. Now I want to move on to a couple of things that are like Ohio State team this year specific. The first thing I want to talk about is Sonny Styles. So I have it written down here as, will Maryland attempt to get Sonny Styles off the field? That's the only thing that I hate that Ohio State's doing this year defensively is they're basically at a point where they're going to let another team dictate whether they want to play against Sonny Styles or not. I said this on one of my previous shows, but I hate that, and I hope that Jim Knowles mixes things up and makes it to where he can put Sonny out there regardless. I don't care who you have to take out, but personally, I think that if someone's going to put 3 wide receivers out there, so if they're going to run 11 personnel, I think that you should maybe pull one of the linebackers off and put Sonny out there, because I think that he's definitely one of the best 11 defenders on this team. He's probably one of the best 6 defenders on this team. I mean, you don't want like one of your best players off the field just because they have a wide receiver out there. Now, at the same time, I don't want him in coverage, like man coverage against a really great wide receiver. Like if you look at teams like Penn State or Michigan, they could get a really good receiver in the slot, and that can create some problems. So obviously, I want Jordan Hancock to come out there, but I do think that maybe subbing out one of the linebackers in that situation and letting Sonny still stay on the field would probably be the best thing to do. Again, I don't know as much as Jim knows, but again, I'm going to keep circling back to the point that you cannot allow the other team to you cannot allow the other team to decide if they want to play against Sonny Styles or not. They need to play against him, period. And look, Mark agrees. Sonny Styles is a flat-out killer. And I agree with that, dude. He's a dog. Sonny is a dog. He's one of the fastest guys on the field. He's lengthy, and he hits hard as fuck. And when you see him out there and he hits someone, they feel it. And again, that's just something that I don't know. I don't know what Jim Knowles has to do, and I think that he will. Honestly, I don't think that Jim Knowles is going to just let teams decide whether Sonny Styles plays or not. I know that early in the year when we played against Western Kentucky, Sonny didn't play a lot, but when you watch that game back, he was still out there, and he was still out there on passing downs. They just were moving him around a little bit, and I hope to see that throughout the year because I want Sonny Styles playing almost every single snap when we get into the big games. When we're playing against Penn State or Michigan, he should be playing almost every single snap because he's that good. I don't know. That was it for Sonny Styles segment. I just hope to see him on the field as much as possible, and I would hate to see a stat like what I found last year where basically the stat that I found last year, I wish I had it in front of me here, but I don't. Basically, when Ohio State played against Georgia last year, if Sonny Styles played at least one snap on the drive that Georgia had, they only scored one time. And that one time was a drive where Sonny Styles did not play a snap in the drive until Georgia was already on the 10-yard line. He got in one play and they scored on that play. Now, and basically every drive that Sonny Styles did not play a snap, Georgia scored a touchdown. And I mean, I didn't think it would be that lopsided, and obviously that's probably you have like correlation versus causation, whatever. But that was a real stat. If you take away the one drive where he only played one snap when they were on the 10-yard line, whenever Sonny Styles played a snap, they did not score a point. Whenever he did not play a snap, they scored every single time. I don't know. I would hate to see something like that happen again, because if you put someone out there and that person ends up kind of getting bullied and you're taking Sonny Styles off the field, yeah, at that point, you're letting them choose to beat your second string players. I don't know how you want to say that, but whatever. Anyway, we'll move on from that. The last thing I wanted to get into today was what I was talking to Mark about earlier. So, how much better can Kyle McCord get throughout the year? I personally think a lot. I've been someone who's been very tough on Kyle in terms of like calling out if I feel like he made a mistake or if he didn't play well in a game or in a drive, whatever. However, I do think that he can continue progressing and he can continue getting better. Honestly, if Kyle McCord just gets good at like touch passes, I think that he's going to become that dominant quarterback that we want on this team, because if you ask him to drive a ball into a receiver, he can do that. He's proven that basically, anytime they're running like a slant or they're running like a comeback route, Kyle McCord is on the money with those throws and he puts some velocity on them. And the receivers seem like they have good chemistry with him on those types of throws. Now, if your receiver is running one step ahead of a defensive back running down the field, we haven't necessarily seen him be able to put those balls on the money. And I think that's what will take this offense to the next level. Right now, Ohio State's offense has not really been explosive, but it makes sense because when you get receivers who are open and you have to throw the ball over top of a defender, that's something that Kyle has not been able to do with any consistency at all. So if that can happen, if he can get better at that, then this team is going to become more explosive, and they're still going to have the rest of that game that they have, which is, like I said, the slants and passes basically where Kyle has to drive the ball in there. He's super good at those. He's good at throwing, anything behind the line of scrimmage. So, again, if he can just get that touch on his passes and also start being comfortable in his arm to throw the ball, because there was a lot of times, I would say like 6 or 7 times versus Notre Dame, where Kyle McCord had everything he wanted in the play. Like you watch the play develop and you can see, like, especially if you're watching all 22, you can see what the concept is, what they're planning on doing, right? And Kyle will occasionally have what he's looking for, and then he will abandon it and won't throw it. So I think that's just going to come with time. I think him being a little bit less skittish in the pocket and him being a little more confident in his throwing ability is going to make a huge difference. And I think that he can end up being that like Ryan Day, Heisman finalist like type like quarterback, because he has the rest. He has the intangibles. You look, he's got a fiery ass attitude. He has arm strength. He's willing to run. That's one of the big things, being willing to run, because so far this year, teams have not been just dropping everyone and giving the quarterback 10 yards to run when they're playing against Ohio State like they did last year. If teams start to do that because Kyle McCord makes them do that by throwing the ball over top, that's going to open up the ability for him to start running the ball more. And some of those plays where he takes off on and he gets 3 yards, those are going to turn into like 15, 20-yard gains when everybody is playing man coverage and has their back to him. So, again, I think Kyle McCord has room to grow and get phenomenally better than what he is now. It's just a matter of doing it. I mean, at this point, Ryan Day even said in the press conference, he was like, he said, getting a job is not an accomplishment. It's what you do with that job. And that's kind of where Kyle McCord's at right now. You won the job, cool. I'm happy for the kid, and I hope that he takes that and becomes one of the best quarterbacks in college football by the end of the year. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, leave a like, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Come back for more content daily, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Peace out. You guys have a great day.